Y'all, it is so hot out here today. I've got the kids in the pool swimming, and I would love to shoot a garden tour if it would cool down just a little bit because I'm dying to show you all what's going on in the garden. There are so many changes. I've got my arbor for the roses partially built because the first rose that I put in is growing so fast it's going to need some support very soon. So I've got so many exciting things to show you. I can hardly wait. It's really bright out here. I can almost hardly open my eyes. But we're going to press on. I'm going to start in the extra lot today, and I'm going to save the best for last. I'm going to save the arbor, the rose arbor, for last because it looks pretty good, even though it's not finished yet. I think it looks great. Okay, so I finally got the grapes planted. They've been planted, I guess, for about a week. And once they get themselves established a little bit, I don't want to stress them out too much. I will trim it back to 1 liter. And the other one is planted all the way over here on the other side. And at some point, I'm going to have an arbor of some sort or a trellis where the grapes will grow up each end of the trellis and they'll meet in the middle. And these 2 pots here will go away and the grapes will take the place of that. So this is the pot that has the potatoes and the tomatoes together in it. We'll see how they end up cohabitating. Right now they look great. They look nice, healthy, green, vibrant. The tomatoes getting tomatoes on it. The potato leaves are nice and green, so it's looking nice and healthy. Look at all those tomatoes. This is the pot that had the bean in it that stopped growing, and it finally started growing again. It had a little place here. I don't know what happened, but it just started turning brown and stopped growing. And I guess when that happens, it starts growing more from beneath. And so it's growing again. And this purple coneflower takes longer to bloom than anything I've ever seen. It's even taken longer than the sunflowers, which, by the way, I have another sunflower that is in bloom. This is the other grape. This one is already trimmed back to 1 liter. Got a couple brown leaves on that one, but there's some other healthy leaves too. When you transplant things, it does put them under stress a little bit. Y'all, look at this. Everything's growing up this trellis so beautifully, and I want you to look at these gorgeous tomatoes. This is the black strawberry cherry tomato, and if those are not the most gorgeous tomatoes you've ever seen, I'll show you the size based on my hand. They're so beautiful. That purple kale, I'm going to take some of it and start dehydrating it and making some greens powder out of it. I tell you what, that stalk is such a beautiful purple. Such a gorgeous plant. The melons have gone crazy. They're filling up the bottom of the planter. They're growing and growing and growing. I even see a couple of melons on here, a couple different places. There's one. I've seen some more on there. I'm not going to bother looking for them now, but they're on there. There's several. And this little flower bed is looking pretty decent. I've had to replace a couple different things. It's got marigolds in it now that are getting ready to bloom. The petunias are in bloom and they're beautiful. And I've got some daisies that are getting ready to be in full bloom. Several of them have already bloomed. And finally, I have another sunflower that has bloomed. Isn't that pretty? I don't know if I can get that to focus good or not. Let's see. There it is. Look at that gorgeous thing. Some of these roses have died back. Tomato on this side's doing great. I don't see any tomatoes on it yet though. These are the red Norland potatoes. They seem to be doing great. These blueberries haven't done very well. It was super small at the beginning of the year. This dahlia is beautiful though. Got some other flowers here that are doing good. Now that I've put some Miracle-Gro on them, the sweet potatoes are really spilling over out of the pot. And these blueberries over here are actually starting to turn colors. I've got them covered up now because I'm afraid the birds will get after them. Get a better angle. See them starting to turn colors? The blackberries are finally starting to get some berries. That's where my cauliflower was, which I went ahead and harvested. I was afraid that the bugs would get it, and it looked like it was ready anyway, so I took it out. This is my zucchini. It does not have any zucchini on it yet. It has had several blooms, but apparently they're all male blooms, so nothing yet. And these raspberries have bushed out so big that I do not see the first raspberry on it yet. More marigolds that are finally starting to bloom. A tomato plant there beside of it starting. That's my grape. That is a purple grape right there. It's called the Noble. And it's going to come out and go on an arbor when it gets bigger. It'll go on an arbor out the other direction. This melon here has not done so great. I have put some diatomaceous earth on it, trying to kill the ants that have taken over. And apparently diatomaceous earth has no effect on ants. Sure does not seem to have in my garden. This blue Hubbard squash seems to have stopped growing. So what I've done to treat these ants is I have taken some borax, some sugar, and a little bit of water, and I've put it in here. They're supposed to take that back to their nest and kill off the rest of the family. So we'll see how that works. This is a pumpkin growing up here. Last week I had a pumpkin on this, and I don't know what happened to it. It started to turn yellow. It may have just not germinated. Honestly, I have not seen a whole lot of pollinators this year, which is actually pretty sad, y'all. I put another ant trap in this, and I can see ants in this thing already. I hope it kills them all. I can't stand them. They get all over everything. This is the chamomile I put over here, and it's finally started to grow. These melons that I put in the ground in pots are starting to go up the trellis. I had to get them started though. That's a decoy, my blue Hubbard squash. Another melon. I think that is probably the Kajari. And another melon, and that's a watermelon. I'm not sure which one it is. The only melons I've done this year was the Moon and Stars and the Tender Sweet Orange, as far as watermelons go. So this Brad's Atomic Grape tomato doesn't look like it's done a whole lot of growth recently, so I'm hoping it'll get busy and get on up through there. We really need some rain. We've not had any rain in several days. Oh, I wanted to show you these tomatoes over here that are just so prolific. Look at that big old cluster of tomatoes there. Another cluster right there. This is my Brussels sprout, and I sprayed a couple of worms off of it yesterday. And I see little tiny Brussels sprouts beginning to form in the little armpit of this. So I don't know if they'll make it to maturity or not. I'm going to guess not. I've not had any to make it to maturity in the summer yet, but we will see. These are the potatoes that I have in bags, and these are struggling a little bit, probably because they're in bags and they do not hold a whole lot of water. Same thing here. So these have to be watered quite a bit, and where I work 40 hours a week, it's a little hard for me to water quite as much as they probably need it. But they actually look better than they did the other day. The beans have made it all the way to the top of the trellis again. It's getting little beans on it all over the place. See that little baby bean? They're everywhere. Little tiny ones. And they're in several places on that. Here's some cucumbers starting. I've got several of those, different places. Another bean headed up the trellis. Another cucumber headed up the trellis. Another bean headed up the trellis. They're kind of everywhere. Another cucumber. This one's getting cucumbers all over it as well. The onions are growing up again. They're really starting to get busy. I tell you, the green on top really seems to be growing very prolifically, but the bulb, the onion itself, just does not seem to be doing a whole lot, and I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong. I've never had any problems with the onions before, but I seem to have this year. So I don't know what to think of that. Also having a hard time getting flowers to grow around this confounded bird bath. I do not know why. So I've got some different things that I'll be planting in the next couple days to see if I can get these to grow. We shall see. I've I've installed a couple of those little vials of borax to try and kill ants in all my beds. The potatoes are doing really well. The ones that are in this straw bed, all of those are doing really well. I have a little volunteer melon that decided to come up, so I'm just going to let it. Something's eating up the leaves on these Brussels sprouts. Got some corn coming up though. I planted the corn in between the Brussels sprouts in hopes that it would pop up fast enough to kind of give it a little bit of shade, and maybe it would make it to maturity, but I don't know that that's going to happen. It's really cabbage moth season is what I call it, because those stupid cabbage moths are everywhere. And they really love to get all over everything. Peppers are doing really well. They're producing all kinds of peppers. I picked some off of this one, and I'll probably pluck some off of that one as well, because they're not getting very tall. And it may be because they're really focusing on the fruit that they have on them. I may just pluck a bunch more off of some of them and try to get them to grow a little bit taller. Some of these are turning black. I believe that's where the sun hits them. It's what I researched last year, if I'm not mistaken. All of these are really starting to get something on them. That's another whole line of peppers. All of these are really starting to do well. That's the long, thin cayenne. I did pluck some beans off of the soybean plant as well. This one's got all kinds of peppers on it. The zinnias that I planted at the end of the bed here are finally blooming a little bit. It's a real pretty zinnia. My Casper Pumpkin is growing. All the tomatoes are doing really well. And I think this is so cute. These little tiny pods here, that's what's going to have the seeds in it. And you can see they're everywhere right now. That's the Tatsoi Greens. One went to seed and the other one did not. So if the bugs had not gotten a hold of that so bad, I could have probably still eaten some of that. But the bugs have really taken over it. Another reason to have it in the cool weather. I don't see any watermelons on the watermelon plant yet. I don't see any melons on the kajari yet. Almost all of the tomatoes have something on them. The Romas have some on it. I don't see any on that. You know, when the temperature gets in the 90s, tomatoes will drop their blooms. And I'm afraid that I have seen some of that. But I do still have some. Pretty good looking tomatoes in spite of that heat. And I will show you one thing that I'm really excited about. And if something gets a hold of this tomato, I'm going to be so mad, because something did get a hold of the very first one that would have been ripe. That was the Campari. But this is a sunrise bumblebee, and it is almost ripe. It's starting to get soft. I say in another 2 days that thing will be ready to eat. And I cannot hardly wait to try that. That'll be the first year that I've tried this tomato. I've got a couple of those plants. And here is the newest thing in the garden this week. So we worked on this trellis yesterday. So it's almost finished. I put one of the wooden boxes on each side. I'll put a link in the comments section if you want to know how I made that. It was actually pretty easy and pretty cheap. So the Blaze of Glory Rose is really starting to put on a show. It's starting to get really beautiful, and it's going to need something to support it. So I'll need to finish that arbor. And what I'll do is I will get something to go on each side of it. Some lattice or a cattle panel or something like that. I'll get to go on there to help support it. And at some point, I'm going to put a gate right there, and this will be the opening to the garden. So it'll be right in the middle. So it'll be right in the middle of the garden instead of down here on the end where you have to enter into it and then go around the beams and then back into the garden. So this will be a lot better. This is my new rose that I just bought and just put in. You can see it's already starting to get a little bit of growth. I need to mulch that dirt. And that is also a climbing rose, and I forget the name of this one, but I will find the name of it and post it on this video. along with a photo of what it will look like at full maturity. So all in all, the garden is doing great. Everything is growing so fast now. It's like once it gets to a certain point, it begins to grow so fast. It's like from 1 week to the next, the difference is like night and day. Even the beans that I showed you just a minute ago, the difference in one of those little beans in just from one day to the next, 24 hours, is really mind-boggling. So I hope you all have enjoyed the video. I hope you all enjoy going through the garden as much as I enjoy going through the garden. If you like the content that I put out, please like and subscribe to my channel. It helps to support it. And I hope that you all have a good night. God bless you.